Okay, he's been by my side for several years, my good friend Rocco Pasafumi. And I've always said Rocco's kind of been my inspiration. Because at 13 years old, he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. And it's been an interesting journey for Rocco in his life. And I asked him this week to kind of like, when you talk to Rocco, you realize how bright he is, how knowledgeable he is about so many things. So I thought it'd be interesting for Rocco to talk about on a weekly basis his journey and his thoughts on life in general. And Rocco, let's talk about your journey since you were diagnosed at 13.
Yes.
The adjustments you've made and the struggle you've battled and where you are in your life and how being a part of this program has made a difference in your life in a positive way.
Yes.
And so let's talk about your journey.
Right. Well, it's been quite a journey, I must say, because when you have something like Asperger's syndrome, your whole mindset on how you look at the world changes. Like, you become more aware of how you see your life. Before I had Asperger's syndrome, I just thought I was just, a regular person, and I thought that, I just kind of was struggling, but I thought that I could kind of, reach a certain point. But then when I went to a psychiatrist and I found out I had Asperger's syndrome, it really made me realize about certain things. It made me realize not only about perhaps maybe certain things that I could achieve, but also things that I realized were kind of my limitations. And I spent a good couple of years, like during my high school years, really trying to kind of figure myself out and how I would fit into this paradigm that I'm in. Because when you have Asperger's syndrome and you're autistic in general, your tendencies tend to be towards, how things work for you versus how you work for the world around you. So it's a lot of trying to kind of figure out how to compromise yourself with the world, because the world can only be so willing to deal with people. And I think that it's very important for me as somebody on the spectrum to really learn how to better adapt to the world. I mean, when I was younger, I was a bit more inflexible. People on the spectrum tend to be very, very picky, tend to have very certain regimented habits and all of that. So I had to really, really try hard, since I was 13 to kind of really unlearn a lot of that. And it's hard because, some things are just are an inherent part of your personality. But I think it's imperative for somebody in my situation to really try to, find that balance where I can kind of, be in a world where I can be more agreeable with it. And I think that's been the real key of dealing with what I have. In the past year, I've gone to see counselor right here at Long Beach Reach. So I've really worked with this person and really trying to get to know myself more in terms of trying to adapt to the world more than I have. And I've done a lot of that on my own in terms of self-teaching myself how to, better deal with situations, how to be more flexible with people, how to be more communicative with people, how to be more empathetic. A big part of, I think what a lot of people don't understand about people on the spectrum is that there's a tendency for people to think that people on the spectrum have no empathy. That in some ways isn't really true, because I think from our own vantage points, we do feel that we try very, very hard to care about others. But sometimes I feel like, the way we look at the world may not be how the regular mindset looks at the world. So I've tried very, very hard to kind of comprehend a more normal mindset in terms of trying to do that. And I think in terms of what I've dealt with in the past year of further trying to evolve myself, trying to kind of rewire myself in regards to being a more neurotypical person, I think I've done pretty well in terms of doing that. I think that's very important for people who have somebody on the spectrum to understand that you have to really kind of show them a way to be. Sometimes they're not going to understand, the right things sometimes, even though in their own minds they're trying to do the right things all the time. I think it's very important if you have a child with on the spectrum, is that it's very, very important teach them and to always teach them. And sometimes you just have to kind of drill it. Sometimes people with autism, you kind of look at them as like being like an automaton or a robot or something like that. Sometimes you have to kind of give them instructions for them to kind of live by and guide themselves by, because sometimes that need for structure is everything to a person on the spectrum. So I think that really is sort of the key to figuring out the puzzle, as it's often pictured, of being autistic.
Rock, I know one of the things you talk about being a defining moment in your life
Yes.
is that, after your high school years,
Yes.
your parents had a quandary. They didn't know whether
Yes.
you could handle going away to college,
Yes.
being on your own.
Right.
And they allowed you to do that.
Yes.
I think it really helped you grow. Talk about that decision
Yes.
and how that impacted your
Yes,
life.
I'm really glad they did that, by the way. I think for anybody, I mean, it depends really, because every autistic person's different. They call it a spectrum for a reason, because they're, not what works for one autistic person may not always work for everybody. But in the case of myself, I was really fortunate that my mom was very, very supportive of me going to college on my own and dorming, and it was a great experience because it really taught me to be more self-sufficient. I think that it's good to have an experience where you're able to kind of be the master of your own destiny and to really learn a lot about how to solve problems on your own. And also, it gave me a great opportunity to kind of really know who I was more. I feel like, when you grow up, especially when you're somebody that's autistic and always having your parents kind of lead you through life, I think that going to college was a great opportunity to be able to kind of pilot my own life more. And I think that it's very, very important to allow people on the spectrum to have that sort of experience. But like I said, you have to really know the person. You have to really know your child, basically, to really determine whether or not it's right for you. It was right for me, ultimately, because I feel like I had a lot of confidence in being able to do it on my own. And I had great friends. I went to a great college. I went to a place where, I didn't stick out like a sore thumb because of me being on the spectrum. I think that really boosted my confidence in a lot of ways. It gave me a chance to really kind of redefine how I saw myself and how I let others see me. So I think that the real key with all that is picking a good college and picking one that's pretty close. I mean, I was only an hour away from my parents, so that definitely helped. And then the other aspect of it is that just kind of really taking it a day at a time and really figuring yourself out, and also asking questions. I think that it was very crucial that I had, I had a staff and I had friends up on the campus that was always willing to answer any questions I had.
Rock, over the years, I know that two things that you really love and
Yes.
kind of like intertwine these together.
Right.
You're very passionate and knowledgeable about
Yes.
movies and theater and films.
Yes. Yes.
And also you love history.
Yes.
And one thing I want to talk about
Yes.
that I think we should explore
Sure.
is over the weekend there was a terrible tragedy in Sag Harbor.
Yes.
Their famous movie theater burned down. That was a movie theater that had been in Sag Harbor since
Yes.
the 1930s.
Right.
Had a lot of history.
Yes.
And we talked about that after the new year, we want to take a journey to Sag
Yes.
Harbor and maybe visit the Historical Society in Sag Harbor and talk about the loss of the movie theater and the movie theater's history. But just talk about the fact that that one theater had such an impact on the community and the surrounding communities that it was like a single theater.
Yeah.
It was passed down,
Right.
like the grandfather told his son,
Yeah.
and just talk about the fact that it was such a important part of that community that people love going to that theater, and what a void it's going to be that after almost 90 years
Yes.
that theater's gone.
It's incredible. Like when I first was told of the story, it's tragic when you have any kind of fire like that affects so many parts of a town. This affected a lot of the buildings on Main Street, I believe the name of the street was, over in Sag Harbor. So it's just very, very sad that such like a small little town had this kind of unfortunate tragedy. And then on top of that, you have like this historic, building, a movie theater that ended up kind of being engulfed along with everything else. And you know, whenever you have things like that, you know, you always think about like the memories that are, you know, kind of lost. I think that for the people in the town, I think that the important thing is for them is that they always cherish their memories, whether it's, you know, kids, parents, grandparents, you know, to know that, you know, this was a big part of their lives and it was a central part. And I think a movie theater is like a nice kind of thing to have as a central part of your life, because, you know, movies are all about the arts and all about kind of being in this, you know, intimate setting in a theater with so many other people, and you get a chance to laugh together, to cry together. And I think, you know, to have something like that be so much a part of the town, I really feel says a lot about the town. I'm definitely looking forward to going to Sag Harbor, and I think it will be very, very fascinating to see what kind of people the town is made up of.
Absolutely. All right. Rocco's journey will continue in future weeks, but we enjoyed Rocco talking about the beginnings of his journey.
Thank you, Howie.
All right.